Coming up to the end here. Get all four sides of the three yards. And it's off to the washing machine. And just a small amount of soap. I'm going to put this on, let's see, warm, that's a small load, light, and then I start cutting squares. I figure out the size of squares I'm going to use. I go count across and go down. Take that by how many colors of prints, and I want it to be about 56 inches wide and 64 long. So that means I have 63 squares of 8.5 inch squares, which I cut. They're cut 8.5 inches. Then I make a diagram of how it's going to look. I use my template for the 8.5 inch square, my ruler, and I just start cutting strips. And once the strips are cut, I use my 8.5 square and start cutting blocks. I counted out on the pattern how many blocks of each print I'm going to need with what script, and that's how many I cut. After I cut those, I start cutting my batting, and you always try to make that whatever your seam allowance is going to be for the rag. So I usually try to go in at least a 1/2 inch, and then that's the width of the actual square of the fabric, minus the batting. You don't want your batting sticking out. And then, next thing, well, meanwhile, what I tend to do is embroider as I'm cutting the printed fabric. That way I'm always busy. Now when you embroider, you're cutting out the muslin and into the squares that'll fit the hoop, that'll fit the digitized, and I will show you that in a second. Okay, I'm in here in front of my laptop, and take off that. Let's see, exported embroidery. This is a photo stitch of Claire. That's going to open. Now I've got a glare from the ceiling light. Alright, well, this is what I do, is basically work on within the hoop I'm going to use, bring in the pattern, the embroidery pattern. I can go to my letters and type letters that I need and cut that. Anyway, it does take a lot of time to do the digitizing. This is one that's being stitched out right now. Right. So I make up each one, save it, export it, and it goes into a thumb drive, and that thumb drive goes into my sewing embroidery machine. And it's time to press out one last, in case there's any wrinkles from when they were setting around, because I can't stand laying out my pattern when I have cricks in my fabric. So we're going to go off out to the rec room and lay this all out on the floor. But before I show you that, I'm going to change out my embroidery machine because it's almost done with the pattern that I have. And I use my fabric, I put a stabilizer behind it, and then I'm going to hoop it and get that started, and then I will show you with what I do with the one that I'm taking out. before we go in and take all these embroidered patterns out to the workroom to lay them out with the other printed fabrics. Be back in a sec. Here we are having this finish up. The same of the thumb drive that I digitized on my laptop. Showing right now the last couple letters that it's going to be. The color is off here because of the light bulb behind it, but it's just a natural muslin. The embroidery thread for the words is almost like a teal blue. Okay, now the quotation marks, and we're done with this. And it's done. Okay, I need 2 hands to get this out. Hang on. Okay, this one's hooped. I'll put this in the machine, but before I start, this one needs definite cleaning up. So what I'm going to do is flip that over, take off all of this stabilizer. It's tearaway. I prefer that. And then I have to clip all the strings and tear apart all the stabilizer that's in all these. So that's time consuming, and I usually do that when I'm embroidering another block. So this is where the time comes in. Yeah, they're labor intensive, not physical, but just a lot of picking and cleaning up before you can even start to sew the quilt together. I'll be back in a sec. It's just picking. See, some people like this kind of stuff. This is my least favorite part. But you know, I have to do it. Because I like the softness of just the fabric. Not leaving stabilizer underneath, especially for a quilt. I want that to be soft. It'd be one thing if you were putting these in frames for pictures. Then I, of course, wouldn't bother. When I sell these blocks individually, I will leave the stabilizer on the back. They will be a large size like this, like it's 12 and a half by 12 and a half. The actual embroider area is smaller. See how that shows through, and that's why I need to take it out. So, but anyway, and then you can cut to the size you want for your blocks, but you're going to have to keep it depending on how much text is on the block. You know, you're going to have to measure it out. These are in an 8x8 frame, you know, embroidery hoop. So anyway, after this is all cleaned off, I get my 8.5 inch square. After I line everything up and mark it to make sure I'm all completely centered here and here. I'll have it creased and marked, and then I cut the block out. Alright. Now out to the other room. Okay, here I am part way. And this is what I do. I lay it out, visually assess it, and see if there's anything I need to change as far as the patterns, prints. I can see I'll probably be moving the sayings around a bit. These are some of the prints.